Okay, our next item is the discussion, consideration of, and possible action regarding approval of the trust meeting minutes for October 10th, 2023. That woke us up.
All right, let's get this party started with that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me get to the right section here. So part of your packet is discussion and action regarding the approval of the trust meeting minutes for October 10th, 2023. The recommendation is to approve the trust meeting minutes as presented, noting any changes that may be requested.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, discussion, consideration of, and possible action regarding financials through December 31st, 2023.
Doesn't appear to be in this that it ends on book. I didn't see it in here. Oh, I think this is this morning's presentation.
So this is number 18 or 19? 18.
Well, I have them printed out here. I was just trying to get them up on the board.
All right, so this is the one that's out.
Want to skip this one and come back to it? Oh, okay. Please stand by. They're loading the slides so that the board can see them.
Are we waiting for slides?
Yes. I'll just take a minute to introduce myself since we have a new board member, Mr. Barlow. I'm Luke Mornian, the Chief Financial Officer for the county.
Are you waiting for them?
Yes.
Is there an...
I've got it printed out in front of me. You all have it in front of you in the book. You want me to just go ahead and get started?
I don't know why can't it be on the monitor?
There was a slide deck for this morning and a slide deck for this afternoon. Apparently this afternoon's slide deck did not get loaded on the podium.
Oh, okay. All right, then go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're on item 18, I believe, beginning on page 9. You should see a chart, Employee Benefits Trust Fund History through December of 2023. And so that top chart is calendar 23. It just shows the claims and the administration expenses paid. And so you can see there's total disbursements of about $17 million for calendar 23. The chart in the bottom left is a year over year. And again, this is calendar year, not fiscal year. And you can see we had an increase from calendar year 22 to calendar year 23, claims and administration of about $2.2 million increase. $2 million of that $2.2 million was increase in claims expenses. Looks like we have the slides, so let me pull these up. There we go. And so again, I was just covering the bar charts here. Fiscal year to date, and so this is last fiscal year. So through June 2023, we had an increase over the prior year of about $915,000 in claims. And then again, we've already covered the calendar year increase. It was about $2 million increase in claims for calendar year 23 versus calendar year 22. This graph just shows the cash flow through December 31st of 2023. That ending mark there, it was about a $10 million mark. If we look back to June 2023, you see that dip that we were about $9 million at that time. And then this is the trust fund balance through the end of last June. You'll recall last year when we met, we were discussing that we had a surplus in the trust fund balance. So we were about $1 million above the actuary's recommended balance at that time. So today, or at the end of last June, the balance was sitting at about $8.2 million. The actuary's recommended balance at that time was $7.9 million. So we had about a $300,000. So we'd come down about $700,000. And so here we're moving on to the budget proposed for next year. And I'll come right out and say that John and I have we've been trying to come to an agreement on some of these numbers on the expense side of things. I'll get to it in a minute, but I show us coming out at the end of the current year about $500,000 on the upside, where he's about $500,000 on the downside. And so we have about $1 million difference there that we need to come to some sort of agreement on, because it is substantial enough that obviously it will affect the board's decisions on whether we need to raise rates or not. But I'll just start from the top. The three colored columns that you see there, all 2025 budget numbers, but this again goes back to what John presented on this morning. This is if we were to leave all the rates alone. That's the peach colored column. The orange colored column is if we were to raise employee rates only by 5.5%, and the green is to raise employee rates only by 11%. But what it comes down to really is what will those rates generate in the way of member contributions. And so you can see the difference there. No change is about 15.7 million. With an 11% change, it would be close to 16 million. There is no dental rate change contemplated here, so those rates are the same across the board. And then moving down onto the expense side of things, and this is where we disagree. We have the Health Insurance Administration. You can see we're bumping that up about $500,000. It was $2.5 million this year. We're budgeting that at $300,000 for next year. And the items that make up that $500,000 difference are the items that were in the memo that John presented this morning. And then on the health insurance claims piece, again, it's about a $500,000 increase. This is what we're projecting based on the data that we see coming in today. And if we move down to the bottom line, again, you'll see right here, this is current year, fiscal 24. The county is projecting about a $500,000 surplus with an ending fund balance of $9.6 million. That would carry over into the next year. And so if we leave the rates completely alone, we're projecting an ending balance for fiscal 25 of $9.3 million. And that is roughly $1.2 million above the actuary's recommended reserve for the end of fiscal 25. If we were to do the marginal rate increases, that would increase that surplus over the recommended reserve balance to 1.3 and 1.4 respectively. Does anyone have any questions?
The only option you gave there is for the employee to go up. There's nothing that says it's shared by the department.
That is correct. At the time that this slide was put together, we were under the impression that raising the department rate was not an option.
Where did you get that from? Why was that decided outside of this?
Given the county's financial issues, overall budget deficit.
Yes.
So, Luke, are you saying that our reserves will be, according to your figures, 9.3?
That is what our projection shows in ending balance. But again, John and I have about $1 million difference, and so if I'm right, then it would be 9.3. If John is right, we'd be sitting right just barely a smidge above what the actuary's recommended reserve is. We'd be at 8.3 versus 8.2.
I like your numbers better.
I mean,
Hey,
go ahead, sorry.
can I ask another question? A few years back, the county swept over $1 million from EBT. How did that affect our numbers today?
That was before my time as the CFO. But if they swept $1 million, then I would garner that probably would have impacted some decisions between the time of the sweep and now.
The EBT was not swept. We had a premium holiday where the premium was not put in, but no money was taken out of the trust.
Well, that's not true.
It just wasn't put into the trust.
No, years ago, we did take $1 million out.
That's
We
true.
used it for,
18 budget.
it was, I think it was before 18. I think it was more like 2016. Actually, it was when Steve Moss was here, so it was like 15 or 16. It was a while ago. We had a lot. We had, I think, like 11 million, and we were being told that we had too much in it.
Yes.
There comes a point where you really shouldn't, with public money, be kept that much. So that's what that decision was made.
Right. Basically, what happens is we didn't take anything out of the trust. For a month, we did not put any money into the trust. So the money that the county normally would have put into the trust, we did not do. It went back to the general fund.
Oh,
So
I don't remember.
So we didn't take it out of the trust itself. We just didn't put the money in, and it
Okay,
went back
all
to
right,
the
so
general.
that's just the mechanics of it, but
Right,
the
right, the
bottom line
mechanics.
is we were less than $1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah.
We did two premium holidays, which
Right.
totaled $1 million.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Bottom line, that is reflected in the fund balance that's before you today.
just for clarification, to answer the question that you asked, when was this decision made and why? Staff and Gallagher have been at this for a while, weeks, preparing for this meeting and calculating and compiling data. At the same time, we were meeting with the departments, started meeting in February, Luke and I and the staff, to review the department's budgets. We concluded that just about a week or 2 weeks ago, I'm losing track of time, just too many things happening, and Luke and his staff have been compiling our budget since then. I met with him yesterday for a little over 2 hours to get a feel for where we're at and how things look. Going through our budget process, and until yesterday when I met with him, the message has been to staff as it has been to the board. We're in a predicament this year. We're going to toe the line. You will be challenged on every request. And so I think that carried through what options we would consider. I think the staff concluded from that we're not going to impact the general fund. Given the information that I saw yesterday with Luke and what we're preparing to go meet with the board members individually, not next week, but the week after, I wanted to challenge that assertion perhaps and firmly believing that if we're going to incur any cost increases, it should be shared. That sharing of costs and pushing for that is just literally from yesterday to today. So they proceeded with the understanding that we are not in position to incur any impact of the general fund. I'm not saying today that all is good and we can, but I'm saying today, based on what I saw yesterday, that we're in position to share the pain because I believe we should do so.
Yeah.
Long explanation.
Madam
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes.
I want to know why there's a big disparity between your estimate.
Why don't you arm wrestle for it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a $500,000, I would understand. $1 million difference? Why is there a big disparity between your estimate and his?
That's a great question.
If it's $500,000, I'll be okay, but $1 million?
I don't know if either one of us have nailed down an answer. We've been going through pretty much every line item of the budget and trying to reconcile, where the revenues are coming in, where the expenses are coming in, any offsets such as reimbursements or rebates that are being accounted for. I think where we have landed, where we think the disparity is coming from, is a combination of what we think the estimated claims are and some general operating costs that consist of wellness consulting, the wellness vendors. All of those fees seem to roll up to a number that is leading us to believe that that's where the difference is coming from. So more to come, but we do think it's probably a little bit in the claims. Maybe the claims estimate that I'm using is slightly more conservative, can make up a little bit of the difference, and then how those operating costs are being allocated. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Luke, anything to add on how we've approached the reconciliation between our two numbers?
No, I think that's fairly accurate. There is a difference in how we budget for some of these things. We budget the reimbursements from the various plans as revenue on the county side of things, whereas on Gallagher's side, they net that against their operating or against the claims. So we're trying to kind of parse out the differences so that we can truly get to where we're looking at apples and apples.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask any more of that question. But I would like to address Sam. Sam, knowing my experience being with the county for a long time, when we have expenses that's borne by the department, it depends on where the department is getting their funding. Some of it, like a department I used to run, was mostly grants. We never got it from the general fund. So to put all the burden of the increase on the employee and not on the department would probably be shorted out a little bit, the general fund, because some of the departments in the county, half is general funded and half is grant funded, and the grant picks up whatever is the funding for that department. So if the rates increase for the employer for that department, then the grants are funded. So what I'm saying is that maybe it's not all borne by the general fund if it's going to be split, the cost between the employee and the department. Most departments that are funded by other sources also pick up the tab of the employee or the employer contribution to the employee benefits as well. So it's not generally all general fund. Unless it has changed since I left.
No, that is an accurate statement.
Okay.
Nothing has changed. It continues to be that way, and I'm not sure that I understand really your comment. But I'm not saying that the general fund is going to bear everything. I'm just saying this scenario says that there would be no impact to the general fund. It's only to the employees.
Okay.
My preference is that we don't go down that path. If there is a cost to be shared, is that we share between the employees and the general fund / any other revenue source that contribute to these things. But it's the general fund that we are worried about at this
Yes, I
time,
understand.
because that is the
Yes.
one based on property tax and
Yeah.
other means.
Well, I only made that comment to make sure that people understand that the general fund is not picking all the benefits of employees in some departments.
Yes, it's only for the general funded departments or
departments,
departments
yes.
that are partially funded by the general fund that is the case.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. That's it? You're done? Okay. All right. What do we got left? That's... So we're on number 5, discussion, consideration of, and possible action regarding reinsurance renewal process.
Yeah, so as in the past, the reinsurance, the stop-loss insurance does not get finalized till much, much later in the year. So this is just giving the authorization for Gallagher to work directly with Ken in negotiating the stop-loss and being able to bind coverage as we get closer to the effective date. Just because stop-loss, the nature of it, they don't bind rates until almost June. So this is just giving us authority to negotiate on the county's behalf and work with Ken to bind coverage.
Madam Chair. I move to approve Gallagher to work with Ken Cunningham, Human Resources Director, to negotiate and bind the reinsurance renewal effective July 1, 2024.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, the motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, discussion, consideration of, and possible action regarding NAEBT feasibility study.
Thanks, Madam Chair, trustees. It's my understanding this has been an ongoing conversation about just looking at alternative options with respect to benefits. One of those was the potential of joining a trust other than yourself, a multi-employer trust. I've noted here a few key considerations and if we were to move forward, some next steps. So I think some of the big key considerations is benefit flexibility. Being on your own, the county, you have the autonomy to make your decisions, design a benefit package that matches your culture, matches your philosophy, and you deliver that to your employees. You join a multi-employer trust. You do have a vote at that, but you are resigned to having a menu of options that you may choose, so there could be some significant changes in the benefits that you offer your employees. There is some potential budget stability by joining a multi-employer trust. It is much more in line with purchasing insurance. So you would not have to carry and maintain a cash balance if you're part of a multi-employer trust. So that is, again, not a recommendation or to sway you, just a key consideration as you're thinking through what would be the best thing to do for the county. Any cash reserves above the county's incurred but not reported liability are freed up. So you'd obviously have to maintain a cash balance that covers the true IBNR liability. Any run out exposures past the day you move, but anything above and beyond that liability would be freed up. Any feasibility study done is actually paid by the other trust, not you, because they are evaluating you as a potential member to join them. So doing the study does not impose any costs on Mohave County. So given that, if there are any next steps, what would you do? You would application process or the feasibility study would be basically an underwriting package. You would submit claims data information to the trust actuary. They would evaluate your financial fit. If there is a financial fit, it needs to go in front of their trust for approval. And then the effective date could potentially be 7/1 of this 24 or sometime in the future. There is no recommendation. This is an information item up for discussion, just presenting you some information and any additional questions. And we also have a member of our team here who manages the multi-employer trust. So if you have any specific questions about NABT, we have the resources to answer those for you.
Okay, I do, actually. Stephanie? Just as a reminder, I don't remember if we went in depth last year about it. What entities are part of NAEBT right now?
The entities that are included in Northwest Arizona Employee Benefit Trust, otherwise known as NABIT, are City of Bullhead City, Lake Havasu City, Lake Havasu Unified School District, and the City of Kingman.
Right. Any questions about that? I remember, because I've been here long enough to know that we were told about 10 years ago that we were not invited to their trust when we broached the subject because our claims were too high, our demographics were different. But now you think they're more open to it? What would be the reason why they'd be open to it now and as opposed to then?
I think that, I know the trust is absolutely welcoming to Mohave County, that they would love for Mohave County and Mohave Community College to come together so that you have the same benefits across. You're not stealing employees from each other that are going from one employer to another just to change their benefits. Also, it provides a lot of good communication between all the entities. I know they have had multiple conversations about their desire to have Mohave County join NABT.
Okay, and economy of scale, right? You get more.
Absolutely.
So just from your experience, you guys are the pros, is this something that you would really, I don't want to say recommend until its feasibility gets soon, but just, seriously look into for the future for us? Absolutely.
We would love to see Mohave County as part of the trust. There's absolutely no obligation on the part of the county can have this feasibility study conducted. We can move pretty quickly, and we would recommend that it happen very quickly so that if you decide to make the move, all your contractual obligations that have notice periods can be done in time for a July 1 effective date if you decide to move. So like as John stated, we would get the claims data. If approved today, we would get the claims data from John and Amanda, submit it to the NABT's actuary for financial fit. And then if it is a financial fit or if it's not, that would be presented to the Board of Trustees of NABIT. And if they approved, then they would offer that membership to Mohave County. And then you would then make a decision as to whether you want to accept that invitation or if you want to decline it for now and then re-look at it next year.
All right, so would automatically our benefits match the best benefits that one of those entities get? So like, let's say the school district, which I know has great benefits. I think they pay 100% of a lot of it. True?
So each entity gets to decide how they want to create their contribution strategy with their cost sharing with their employees. The trust requires that each entity fund at least 80% of the employee-only premium and 25% of the dependent coverage. So dependent coverage, less employee, 25% of that amount. Other than that, you can, and you can fund 80% of one of the plans and require different on the other plan. Just at least one plan has to be with those numbers. But if you want your employees to pay less than that, if you want to provide 100% coverage for your employees on a particular plan, you can, that's a completely Mohave County decision.
Right, but I thought you said that one of the big ideas was that all the benefits were aligned, so we're not
So
stealing.
the actual coverage on the plan is the same, but you
Okay.
get to make your own decision with regard to contribution strategy.
Okay, okay, all right, yes.
A question. I understand right now, no feasibility study has been conducted, right?
Correct.
We're in the process of agreeing or not agreeing with their feasibility. The question that I have is structurally, even without the feasibility study, the structure, does that mean that we as a trustee, as a board of trustee, will be eliminated if we join this consortium? One. Two, decisions for what is going to be provided to our employees based on that will be decided by this trustee and not a group of trustee which is appointed by our elected officials.
Correct. So this trust would be dissolved, and a trustee, which is typically would be the county manager, would be the trustee, and then usually the HR director or the finance director, whichever your entity chooses, would be the alternate trustee. That would be the individual that would vote in the trust on behalf of the county.
Okay, that would also eliminate our contract with Gallagher?
Well, because you would be becoming part of NABT, all the contracts that NABT holds, you would become a party to.
Yes.
You do have a lot of the same vendors that NABT currently does. So there would be really not, the plan design is a little bit different, but there aren't that many differences between the coverages in the plans.
I understand that.
And the vendors are very similar. So disruption to the employees would, there would be disruption.
I was just asking about the structure of this whole thing. The trustee group will be eliminated.
Yes.
Gallagher contract will be eliminated because you don't need them as part of your NE, whatever. the
Right.
group
We're
that
still
you have.
Gallagher, though.
Oh, is Gallagher also doing that?
Yeah.
So you're right.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
The direct contract with
County,
services that we are providing would go away, but by joining the trust, you're still entering in a trust contract that includes Gallagher.
oh,
as
okay,
one of the
I didn't know that. Okay.
Sean is my boss.
Okay, I didn't know that, I'm sorry. But what happens to our reserve that we have built?
So your reserve, except for the amount that needs to be held in reserve to pay out the claims after the trust is terminated, would go back to the county. And there are rules regarding how that money can be used. I mean, for instance, you could pay your premiums in NABT with that money, but John and Amanda would work with you to close out the trust legally and make sure that everybody is informed as to how that money can be spent and, all the details that come into closing a trust.
One last question, again, structure-wise. Since we are created in the county with the blessing of our elected officials, which is the Board of Supervisor, do we need permission from our Board of Supervisor to eliminate the structure they've created to join another entity?
Well, that would be a question for your county
assume it
attorney,
will be.
probably.
Yeah, I think that would be something that we would definitely put up to the Board of Supervisors.
I
I
would
don't think
agree.
we would do it without the full expressed support
Yes.
of the board. True?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Yes.
So if we trust Gallagher now and we have this many votes, why would we give that up for one vote on a different board where we have a lot more employees than the city of Kingman, who would also have a vote, or the city of Bullhead, which would also have a vote, et cetera?
That's a great point, and that really can honestly only be answered with discussion by you guys. This was just something to bring as as a data point to make a decision on if there were other options with respect to benefits. It's not a recommendation or trying to guide you in any direction. It just simply is another data point out there as an option for the county, and wanted to make sure that you're aware of it, can ask questions, educate yourself on that option, and then decide amongst yourself, is it even viable or it's not worth entertaining? So, philosophically, that really is up to you guys to decide on if you want to maintain the autonomy and complete flexibility to manage, structure, and deliver your health benefits to your employees without any other controls in place.
Would the HR department, would they still be the go-between for the employee to the trust?
Oh, absolutely. It has no impact, honestly, on the HR department. Like I mentioned earlier, it's almost kind of like buying insurance. So if you're not self-funded, you're just kind of changing it. You're still self-funded, but you kind of smooth out your cash flows a little bit. You get rid of maintaining that cash balance above and beyond the IBNR, things like that. But HR, absolutely, their function is every bit as critical under that environment as it is now.
Right. Okay. So today we vote on whether to go ahead with the feasibility study. In my experience with these consolidations is the thing that really is a hiccup in the process is that the boards don't want to give up their power. And I think it's just important to know at the end of the day if this is financially better for us, for the employee. Would we get better stuff than we get now, and whether that would be worth giving up, And I do think that representation should be proportionate, right? I mean, if we are double what the city of Bullhead is, then we should have that more representation. I mean, that's just common sense. So those kinds of things can be discussed.
As pros and cons
Right.
of why you would move. And yes, it isn't a weighted average vote.
But those type of things
Right.
can still, we'll see in the feasibility study, those can be decided going forward, but then everybody would have to buy into that.
Right, yeah, and those are the things that aren't really represented in the feasibility study. That is just mainly to see actuarially, are you a financial fit?
Right.
Does your risk profile match that of the trust, or is it greatly different? And then if it does overlap very well and the benefit packages overlap well, then you can say, well,
Yeah, why wouldn't we?
from that, it's a good financial fit. Why wouldn't we? Those are all those other questions.
Right.
Do we want to dissolve this board?
Let me ask you one thing.
Yep.
If we were, let's say we did this today, we already went through our thing, we did today, how much of our reserve would go back to the county?
Everything probably except
Claims.
rough justice about a month. And Chris, feel free to jump in month and a half conservatively worth of estimated paid claims. So whatever 1.5 months of estimated paid claims minus what your cash balance is today would be a rough estimate of what would be freed up.
You're talking about our reserve?
Yes, of your
Wow,
reserve.
that would be a big financial windfall for the county.
Yes, Susie.
Considering that there's a political will in our community, okay? When you say we are invited, Mohave County is invited into this consortium. I assume it's a consortium. Who are the we who's inviting Mohave County? Is it the trustees or is it the elected official in these areas wanting Mohave County?
In this case, it would be the trustees.
Now, who is the trustees responsible to? This big.
So the trustees currently who are on the board of NABT are Toby Cotter, city manager, Jess Knudsen, city manager, Lake Havasu, Becky Stone, she's the current chairperson from Lake Havasu Unified School District. She's the superintendent. And Tina Moline is the interim trustee from the city of Kingman. They make the decisions regarding what happens with the trust, just like this board does. And they report back to their governing boards, city councils or the school board on whatever decisions were made and what the funding impact is to the particular entities.
Do you know offhand, like, as of now, how many members there are of that trust?
About 1,800.
So we would be bringing another 1,000 in, so we would probably need 3 representatives. But did you have a question, Luke?
I'm just curious, currently the Mohave County Trust picks up about half the cost of our HR department. How is that handled in a
Oh,
as far as the cost of actually administering the program?
yeah, that would be gone.
So the trust currently does not, but that's just
Yeah, but look how much money we saving.
because it's included in part of your rate currently. So your rates are considerably higher than the NABT rates. So you could reserve those funds. I'm sure there's a financial way to make it work where those positions continue to be paid for out of the trust.
Yeah, does that
Or
answer
out of
your
your
question?
funding, you know, so that you're overfunding, but using that money in the back. Not sure.
Okay, so we're voting on doing a feasibility study.
Madam,
Oh, yeah.
this feasibility study, what would the approximate cost be of it, and who would be paying for it?
So I'm not exactly sure what the cost is of it, but that cost, the burden of that cost would be on the NABT trust. There would be no cost for the county to participate in that study.
Yeah, so there's no cost and there's no obligation.
You know, generally speaking, it's always good to speak from an informed position, and a study like this would provide information to help us make an informed decision. My thoughts and concerns, particularly about this in general, is that our demographics are different. And with that, there is the question of how that would fit into our model going forward. Our structure, our revenue structure at the county is different than the cities. So their priorities could very well be much different than ours. And so how they fund things, how they pay for them, what they prioritize, how they structure the plan could be substantially different from what we have done in the past and where we are today and where we want to go. And so if we choose to go in the direction of getting a study done so we can be informed, I guess I'm okay with that, but I will tell you today, and when the study is presented, those would be the kinds of nuggets that I'll be looking for. I would be looking at, will the benefit that we get out of joining this trust outweigh the concerns that we do have and the control that we would.
Absolutely. That's what the feasibility study is for, I assume, is to get all those things out. But do you understand what he was saying about how like the way it just maybe not gel right and how we would address those kind of things? Yep. But I think, we're not paying for it, and it might be a good thing. In a lot of cases, consolidation is great. In some cases, it isn't. So it's going to be interesting. We have the same thing, the fire departments, the good with the bad, and yet the costs go up and the taxes go up, and at some point we have to think differently. And we saw about what's going on today with the costs going up and everything. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. We got nothing to lose from doing this, right? From doing this study, got nothing to lose. All right. So with that, then I will make a motion to approve proceeding with feasibility study to join NAEBT. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. That was good. All right. 7, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding MCEBT vendor renewals effective July 1st, 2024.
Thank you. Yep, this is the following is an overview of the vendor renewal that is up for renewal January 2024, and the only one we have posted on here is Meritain Health. All of our other vendors are in some sort of a guarantee. So they have what's listed here are the current fees, and then they're proposing 3 additional years. It calculates approximately to an annual increase of just under $18,000 for medical administration. Let's see. You voted to add the voluntary products and hospital indemnity in 2022. Having those products reduces the overall per employee per month cost of the admin by about $1.50. So keeping those attached, they're kind of leveraging that on their administration. The overall costs they're going up graded over the course of 3 years, but I would say that they are in line with what we've seen other administrative increases come in at.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Is there
I don't believe that is
there's no
a
action.
motion or
No. Yeah. There's no action on this, just informational. Next one is, sure.
But it says here that the rates, the vendor renewal is effective July 1, 2024. So we're not approving any of these rates for July 1?
Well, we are in the
in the budget building process,
process.
that'll be part of that component. Yep.
Okay. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding 2024-25 MCEBT budget, benefit changes, and rates. Here we go. There's no backup here? I guess not, because they build it based on what they heard us say.
Okay.
Remember that big spreadsheet that Erin used to? Remember to put your name when you speak, because people are texting me that
This one?
you're saying.
So we didn't do, you don't have mine on there. Nope, it's not. All right, Madam Chair and trustees, so here is the budget building process. So, okay, I know we have a lot to go through. We've talked about a lot. And before we get into this, are there any other or scenarios that we want to look at as we've talked through, potential increases, the impacts? What do those look like going forward?
Anything, Verlin? Did you have anything you wanted to add and put in for them so we can look at?
It's difficult when, we're talking $1 million difference and
Sam, anything you want to see, or Luke?
I'm just interested in.
Okay. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so keep in mind that what we're looking at here compares last year's budget on the left and this year's potential budget on the right. Last year's budget does not reflect the actual rates, so the ones that went to 50%. This is comparing it to if it was 100%, so I apologize if that creates a little confusion.
Say that again.
So the rates that were actually implemented that are currently in place did not complete the entire shortfall of the funding gap. So looking at the 23-24 budget here is showing what the recommended rates were. And I think we're getting the other one pulled up that I have calibrated to show what the current budget is.
All right.
Which will be much more helpful looking at, but I can add context. So if we went back in time and you went with the recommended rates, your overall increase to the budget this time around would be under 2%. Under 2%, 1.9%.
If you're saying if we had taken the hit last year.
Yeah, last year,
we
that's
would have been
correct.
in much better shape than we are now.
Yeah, because what you really do is you're kicking the can down the road. Medical inflation does not go away. So you,
Okay, yeah, got it.
so really on this, while we're waiting for the other one to show up to look at what it looks like under the current rates, we'll just kind of focus on the 24-25 budget buildup. Really, the main piece that is changing is the stop loss. You can see here, there's from Chris's recommendation, there's no change to the funding rate factors. Those are remaining the same. There's some minor increases on the administration costs, but the big one is the assumption that comes in on stop loss, and we always typically estimate about a 25% increase. Medical stop loss has a much higher typical annual trend than other components of healthcare. One, they take on the most risk, and you typically don't assume more risk every year, so you don't increase your individual stop loss deductible every year. So there's a leveraging component that trends with it, and that's why we assume that number. And that equates to about 500,000. I don't see the other one coming up. I think so. I think we sent it, and he ended up putting the same one we have on here twice. So other than modeling the increases in the potential cost share between the employee and employer, what we did not model is additional plan design changes. With discussions with the HR staff, given the amount of changes that took place last year, if you recall, there are multiple levers to get to that 50%, right? We had one was plan design changes, one was an overall increase, and the third one was a slight shift in the employee contributions. You went from to 10% on the employee and 15% on the dependents. So all three of those levers were kind of pulled to get where you're at today. So knowing that, we did not model carving any more out of the plan. So what I mean by that is we're not looking at increasing the deductibles, increasing coinsurance, increasing copays. We're looking at keeping the same plan design that is currently in place today, so that same level of benefit can be offered this next plan year. So we don't have a whole lot of permutations to go through with respect to making decisions on benefits. It really is going to come down to what Luke and I have discussed in his recommendation on the overall budget, and then what does that look like? And so what I've brought up here, and I think, Sam, you hit on this, and I can make some adjustments to this, is what this is showing is either the 5.5% increase or the 11% increase with no change in the department budget. This is what we had earlier. I think it's just probably a little bit easier to look at now that we had it on the screen, and I can either navigate or highlight cells that make it clear. But this top portion is the current, starting with here. Here's the weekly amount, the monthly amount for the employee, the monthly amount for the department. the rate, which would be the sum of these parts. Over here would be what was originally recommended, and then the difference is what we would count or saying that the EBT portion is. And so both years are illustrated in the same fashion, so we can see the differences in the weekly amount for the employee or the monthly amount. The department stays the same. And then, do we still believe there's a shortfall? This is where, that $1 million comes into play. And I'll kind of expand on that. So when I'm talking with Luke and he says, well, if we do this, we're only going to come in, say, at about $200,000 or $300,000 under budget or right around there. I'll say, no, I think it might be $1.5 million, because that's where that extra expense that I have isn't reconciling with his, and that's where the delta is. So, that certainly does come into play in the budgeting, the decisions. Given the looking at what Luke has put together in the past, I don't have as much heartburn if we're kind of leaning towards where his budget numbers are coming out at. We reconciled on a lot of the big numbers, I believe, the revenues, the claims, and like I said, I think a lot of it might be coming down to some operating expenses that I'm hoping I'm just overestimating them. But, our claims estimates, our premium revenue estimates, the amount of prescription drug rebates, stop loss, we all line up on those major components. It's just that one missing piece that we haven't been able to identify as we've dug through every line item. So with that said, I'll kind of turn it back for the discussion on what kind of areas do we want to look at with respect to the increases over what's currently being paid. How much do we want to put onto the employee? I think I heard earlier, sounded like there's a agreement on that both the county and the employee should share, the burden of any increase that's being recommended. Now, let me clarify, is that sharing the exact same increase, or is it sharing the same dollar amount? So, Luke and I were discussing earlier, if both pieces go up by, say, 5%, 5% of the employee portion on a dollar amount is much, much lower than increasing the county percentage by 5%, because the county obviously is carrying about 88% of the overall cost. So increasing that by 5% is a much larger number than increasing the employee portion. So whatever I model, I want to make sure we're on the same page with either respective percentages or dollar amounts.
Madam Chair. Can you, John, can you please scroll back down so we can see 24 and 25 on the screen? Okay, that's good. No, just zoom back in because, and scroll on just one more so we can see the employee in FY24. There you go. Thank you. I just want to make a point related to the reserve, which, as you just noted, and I'm on the very top line that says EE in FY24. Please scroll down one more time. There you go. So we know what the biweekly is. We know what the monthly is. The department monthly as well. And as you noted, the combination of the employee monthly and the department monthly adds up to the current, which is $765. That is what the rate is today in FY24. What we were told last year we needed in FY24 to close the gap was the $831.86.
That's correct.
So we opted to not get that far, and we landed on the $765.92. So the EBT monthly, that 60 just for the employee alone, that $65.95, that's what is coming from the reserve, from the trust to reserve. And that is, in a way, what we're doing as we subsidizing or we're depleting the trust fund, the reserve. That, using that same analogy, same approach for FY25 and staying with the employee, now the needed is $808, and we're told the monthly total that we should get to is the $848. So if we just using your scenario to understand it, the employee monthly would be $87.76. The department will be paying the same $682 because we said it's not changing, and this is just the model. That's not what I'm saying we would wanna do.
Right. That's just what you're correct. That's
Yeah,
what this
so
is
the
illustrating.
difference from the trust is going to be the $78.11. That's just for that one line for the employee. You would repeat the same discussion for the employee and spouse, employee and children, and then employee and family.
That's correct.
That from a principle, from a principal approach, that concerns me, because if we don't do something to close that gap, and if we can't close it, just at least continue to narrow it, I think we will end up with a point where we either get to or below the actuarials recommended. Aside from what you and Luke were discussing, we have a target of an actuarial that we should attain annually, and that's, I think, what we need to keep in mind. So as far as modeling for us, I think we need to quantify all these numbers, and not so much into percentages, but into dollar amount. If I was to just from these numbers to make the point, I can subtract one number from the other and come up with what the employee would be paying extra. But I think the board and I, for example, scroll back down a bit.
And this is a different one. You want me to go back to the one that shows the department holding at zero, or the one where the department is now sharing in part of the increase as well?
But even the sharing, from what you're telling us, whether it's 5% or what's the dollar amount, I think the board and I want to know dollar amount, what that is going to be. Meaning, if we say we're not going the 11, the total gap, we're not closing it, the 11%, we're going to go halfway there, and we're going to share that halfway. What does that mean to the employee? What does that mean to the department? We're going to need those numbers in dollars and cents. At least I do. So I know, based on the fresh number that we were looking at yesterday, can the general, I'm focused on the general fund, understanding that our revenue sources vary. Can the general fund afford it? And I think the board shares this thought and concern that a shared approach is a good approach. And so we just want to know what the impact is, and how do our employees, how are our employees impacted by it, and more so, or equally so, how the general fund is impacted by it.
So at the 5% or 5.4%, half of the 11, the employee is impacted on a monthly basis on the EPO plan at about $4.50 monthly, and about $19.58 on the family. The high deductible health plan, the employee is about $3.84 monthly, and about $16.26 monthly. This side is what the increase to the department is on a monthly basis. And I can give you what that means from a total dollars. That's about 725,000. Assuming current enrollment. Keep in mind that any fluctuation in enrollment could change these, but this is a snapshot of these headcounts at a snapshot in time, I believe, as of December. But that 5.5 or 5.4% increase would increase the department budget with respect to the medical and drug plan by $725,000.
Madam Chair, I wonder if we don't, just so we understand these things and can really digest them, if we don't vote on this today, what options would we have? Do we have a week, a 2, a 3 weeks where we can, sleep on it? Yeah, yeah, perhaps. Is that,
More clarity on the numbers and what the impact would be, and maybe we'll see something while doing this that would serve everyone better? What does everyone think about that?
Well, I think we need to know what the Board of Supervisors would agree to before we can even decide. I mean, if we have to come up with 11% or 5.5%, that's one thing, but is the board going to be agreeable to split that or not?
Well, the way we are set up right now, we make this decision, not the Board of Supervisors. We make the decision.
I don't know that we make the decision for the general fund, though, do we?
we compile our budget and put it in front of the board as an entire budget, and they vote on it. So it's always predicated on the blessing of the Board of Supervisors, but the fact that our chairman here is the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, I think would help.
So how much time do you think you need?
Maybe enough time for you guys to be closer in disparity.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly like.
That might be the key to us approving anything.
Yeah.
If you can come together and be closer.
Yeah, if we can find, the discrepancy and where we can reconcile where our budgets align a little bit better, obviously that would be goal number one. We're not going to get there today, but to give you context of what I just presented to you, just under the assumption, say that I'm overshooting it by $1 million. So we close that gap, and I agree with Luke's numbers. So at the 5.5 or 5.4% increase, if we take that into account, that would lead to an estimated actually surplus of about 200,000. So just to give you an idea, the difference that $1 million makes, and we were talking about the impact that it could have on a decision.
So, Luke, we are presenting to our board
April 3rd.
on April
April 3rd
3rd.
is the budget workshop.
Okay, so that gives you an idea, Madam Chair. It would be, I think, critical to have this discussion complete, reconciliation done, and have this special board meeting to act on it before April 3rd, so you can roll it into the budget.
And how does that work for you?
I'm sure we could come to an agreement by then. One thing I wanted to mention, Leanne mentioned this to me, given the executive session and what was discussed, what's the timeline that might be resolved, or that might come back before the NCEBT board?
Huge chunk if we are. I know. It's going to be. That's unreasonable.
Do you think that second level review will be done by then? And
Luke, it would be preferable we bifurcate and do not tie the two.
okay,
We need to have, this is a critical path for us, and we shouldn't tie the two.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Sam, what was that last statement?
Madam Chair, I was suggesting we don't tie the two, the executive session for the matter that we looked at, and this is important that we keep it on track for our budget.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, and it probably will be cleaner if they present options and they're very clear on what options there are, because it's kind of confusing a little bit, going back and forth on those columns.
I'm sorry, I did not hear the whole question.
No, I was just saying for clarity, at least for me, and I'm sure for the other members, trustee members, is if there's any option of how it's split, they would be presented separately, so we know this option, the split is this option, the split is this. That way it's cleaner. It's hard going back and forth.
Understood, and you're echoing Manager Elter's comments, and we can definitely display those options in a different format that's a little bit easier to
Easier
understand
for
from the
us
board's
to digest,
perspective.
yeah.
To digest. Thank you.
And then
My
also,
my concern, Sam, with the April 3rd budget workshop, I think if we can, if John and I put our heads together and we're able to come up with something, and this board can meet in another a week from now, maybe 2 weeks. If the board votes to increase departmental rates, it's going to take some time for finance to push that into the budget that we're going to have to present to the board on April 3rd. That's a preliminary budget workshop. We can certainly adjust rates after that point in time and bring it to the tentative. The tentative budget is really the one where we can't increase the expense after that point in time.
Right.
So I think it's probably best to give John and I at least 2 weeks, but understanding that we may not be able to push that final number depending on what the EBT board votes. We may not have that into the prelim budget because it will take some time to rework. We'll have to rework every department's budget to account for that. We could have a round number and just plop it into the bottom line, but it's not going to be reflected in the individual department budgets that quickly. That's one of the problems with moving up our entire budget process this year. We've really compressed the timeline.
It's okay. There's still benefits from moving it up.
Agreed.
What we can do though is present.
no, I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself.
As long as we present information, clear information to this board to make a decision, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and that's why we're waiting for you to debate it and come up with a timeline that is adequate. I think we can go to our Board of Supervisors and just point out that the budget as we present it has an asterisk, and it has to do with medical insurance, and there's a dollar amount of X that will be tagged onto it, and it will be allocated to every department. That way we're transparent, they know what the impact is, and then how it goes, whatever goes to each department, I don't think it matters less to the board than what matters is what the impact is. So pick a date anytime between now and April 3rd. We'll get this board the information to make a decision, and then we'll run with it from there.
Sam?
Sure.
So, Berlin brought up a point for something like this, given our situation, our economic situation, and when you go to each supervisor and you explain what's going on, that would be, because it's in a couple of weeks, you're starting to do that? So if you can at least let them know, so that doesn't come as like a big surprise, because there is at least one supervisor who really feels that the board should be more involved. And up until now, we've been, it's been pretty, I don't want to say easy, but we haven't had this kind of, perfect storm with our budget and all of this stuff. So it might be prudent while you're doing your roadshow to discuss this and get some input so that we don't have like a big dissension during that workshop, we know what to expect.
Madam Chair, that is a great idea, and I'm not saying that because you're the chairman.
He always does, though.
I asked Melissa yesterday to reach out to every board member and schedule
Right.
2-on-1 meeting with Luke and I the week of March 18th.
Yeah, I'm
So-
on the 19th.
yeah.
That's why I brought it up.
So we'll absolutely, then let's do the week of the 25th, we'll have our meeting here. That way we can meet with every board member, bring feedback, and integrate it into our decision,
Perfect.
and then go from there. Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
So do we have to make that in a motion, in the form of a motion? To make us,
Madam Chair, it seems to me we would, because the suggested motion was that we approve the following 24, 25, but the fact that we are not, perhaps a motion would be that we
you make the motion.
okay. Madam Chair, I move that we not approve the following 24, 25 benefits and rates as suggested today, and that we reschedule this meeting for the week of March 25th for the board to come back in a special EBT board meeting and discuss it then and approve it at that time.
Okay. Do I have a second for that? Second. I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Mr. Barlow, you can call in.
Yeah.
Yes, Susie.
Oh, just take into consideration, there's some religious holidays on that week.
Oh, yeah.
Good Friday, Good Sunday,
Easter, yeah.
so
All right.
Okay.
if we can do it much earlier, earlier in the week.
All right, well, everybody will reach out to get the dates from everybody. Okay, so we have that motion in a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Whew. Number 9, administrative update.
This is a quickie. So this is just a information item. Gallagher will be working along with staff to draft any open enrollment communications that reflect any changes that we come to an agreement on the week of the 25th.
Okay, and now any other future actions? Is that the next thing?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would really, really like it if the county would make all the employees come and go through the open enrollment. There's people that maybe have been with the county for 7 years and didn't have diabetes or didn't have hip problems 7 years ago when they started that now do. And they don't always necessarily understand the Hinge Health or program or the Livongo or some of the other things that have been implemented since. And, you know, you send out these flyers or whatever it is that are sent out, and they don't always read them enough to understand that it really pertains to them. So it would be nice if everybody had to go through and listen to the preventive screening ideas and the Livongo and the other issues and things that are now available to them.
Okay. That's not something you want to put on a future agenda, or do you want to it's not agendized now, so I don't know if we can really talk about it for the future. Oh, okay. Does that sound like something reasonable that you can do?
Yes, so I'll speak to that. We do the presentation down here. We do record it, we stream it, we ask people to come in. So we do post the recording, we send out the YouTube link. In addition, we do have everything listed on our benefits page. I send out monthly things regarding each benefit, and then we also talk about it during NEO. So we do put it out there. It is hard to get people to come in and sit, and we understand that. We all work, which is why we stream it, and we also record it and we send it out. And it'll also be posted on our ESS come open enrollment time, so that all that information is there and it's built in for when people do select their benefits. So.
But there have been years past when open enrollment was mandate, and you had to come. And until somebody has to come, they're not going to come, and they're not going to watch the videos. And I know you guys do a great job trying to get the information out, but it's not getting out.
Right. So
And the same with the skin screening this year. The fact that, it's not going to be available is not going to prompt me to know, oh, but I can go to my regular primary physician and have the same thing for $50 or whatever the cost is. So they'll just not go.
Right. And part of that is we were doing positive enrollments just to make sure everybody was refreshing their benefits. And we try to do that every 3 to 4 years, which we also did last year. So that's why, unless there's some huge significant change, we're not going to require it because, again, not everybody wants to go through every single year and repick what they currently have. So that is fair, though.
We were talking at lunch, and I think we've talked about this in the past, about incentives. Doing something that would move people to try something that they might not ordinarily try. Like the Hinge thing comes with a computer. Like it's a laptop, a tablet that you keep. I don't know if people realize that. And just to go back to the beginning of the meeting when I talked about people who are no longer using Hinge but are still being charged, I think we really need to look into that and make sure that, you're up to date, or people are up to date with what they're doing, what they're not doing. It's like the reverse, right?
Right.
Paying for something that people aren't using as opposed to people aren't using what they could be using.
Right. I'm in agreement with that. And the fun part, like Tori was talking about with Hinge Health, is now you no longer are getting the tablets. So it's a really cool, I don't even know how to describe it, the way it can be built in on your phone now. So it can zero in on your body and know. So you don't have to have the sensors. You don't have to have the tablet. It'll all be built into your phone. So we're excited for that.
Oh, good.
And then for incentives, as part of the Navigate program that we brought on last year, we're going to have the quarterly drawings that go with the challenges we've had. We're going to do it at the annual aspect. And then we're going to also have an overall annual prize too. For those who have participated in the year, they'll be into the raffle so that they can get something out of that.
Okay. Well, that's good ideas. If you come up with anything, better, I'll speak to the people I speak to, and because these are great things, and we have to get in front of some of these things that are fixable.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, Laura.
I apologize. Coming from Planning and Zoning Commission, when we made the motion to be in the week of the 25th, there's not enough time, and I'm not sure procedurally where this meeting comes into, whether we need to notify it in the newspaper and those type of things. So I just wanted to make sure that that was okay.
We have to have it posted 24 hours ahead of time. So
Only
as long
24 hours? Okay,
24
just
hours,
wanted to
yes.
make sure because I was like, wait a minute.
No, I'll
But
actually-
I apologize, but thank you.
Nope, that's fair, Madam Clerk. Once we're done here today, I'll actually send out to get everybody's availability on the 25th. It sounds like maybe the 27th would work the best. And some are also, well, maybe not for all of us, but
Not
some
for all, but I can.
we'll be able to do
whoever's
teams.
not there, we can come by phone.
Yeah, we'll be able to do teams also. So
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, with that, before we adjourn, I want to tell a lot of the vendors who are here that I've seen for year after year after year that it's been fun. It's been so interesting. I've learned so much. This was my last year as the chair, actually as a supervisor. I'm running for a different office, but this has been the most one of the most interesting things I've done in my time as a supervisor. And I've met so many, and now we're kind of personal friends with some of you, and you do a great job. I'm so proud of the work we've done on this trust, and we'll get through this. We always do. And It's just, I wanted to tell you that from the bottom of my heart, that it's been a real pleasure to work with y'all. Thanks.
Since you started that and before you gabble again, let me just say, my understanding is you've been the chair for the whole time you've been a supervisor. And I can honestly tell you, I've only been here for 4 years, not even quite 4 yet, but what I've heard from many people who have been is they attribute, they say and we know that the trust has been successful due to the effort of this board and your chairmanship. And many attribute the success of the trust to what this board has done under your leadership. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. And of course, first Aaron Collins and now Gallagher. It's been a great working relationship. Okay. Very good. Okay, thanks all. Thank you. And thanks for our board. Oh, yeah. Charcuterie. Charcuterie. That's the new word for this century. Charcuterie.
So it's the last time I'm going to see you.
Well, we're going to have one more. Don't we have a quarterly meeting?
A special meeting.
We probably have a special. I might not be here. You know why? Our nominated petitions are due by April 1st, and you have to make them, you have to go there to Phoenix, and you have to make